Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast. Join your host, Nicole Cox, as she dives into the real stories, tips, secrets, and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside the trade world. Nick is here to help you break free from the grind, reduce money stress, and build a trade business that truly works for you. So grab a brew, put your phone on silent, and get ready to be inspired.
Welcome back to the Tradies in Business podcast. I am joined by a very exciting guest today. Mr. Miles Astley is a client of ours. He's been working with us here in Tradies in Business for almost 2 years already. I can't believe it, but he didn't come alone. He's a bit of a package deal, Miles. He's come with some of his family members as well. I'm not going to tell all his story, but we're bringing you another real tradie story. It's really important to me to share real tradies and their journey through business, because we all go through very different personal journeys, and it's important for you to hear how others have woven their way through a journey and to be reminded that you're not alone, because business isn't easy all the time. Sometimes it's great, but one way or the other, it's a continuous learning journey, and I just know Miles is going to bring us lots of value today. Miles, thank you so much for taking time to join me.
No problem, Nick. A pleasure.
Miles, can you tell us all about let's start with you before we delve into Astley Electrical. How did this all begin for you?
Back in 82, I was dating a girl at the end of school, and her father offered me an apprenticeship. And at the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I was good with my hands.
Yep.
I'm not referring to the girlfriend here.
Yeah, I was about to say. Hope you didn't mention that to her dad.
And I always pulled everything apart. Mum freaked every time I pulled the radio apart and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that's not a bad idea. I actually had done my HSC, and I turned 61 this year. And guys back then did their HSC and went to uni. Not many guys went and did a trade. So anyhow, started with him. Worked for him for 2 years, and he did backup generators. And in the second year of my apprenticeship, when I was just starting to get to work out what electricity was and how it worked, I was pulling engines apart and stuff like that. Not electrical, I mean mechanical, welding. And I was having a great time. But he had a couple of government projects that put him to an end. And then he worked in Rotary, and a mate of his worked at a chemical factory as an electrical engineer. And like today, if you go belly up, you really have to push your apprentices to find a job. So anyhow, he found me a job, and I finished my 2 years in a chemical factory down behind a race course in Sydney. And it was the most volatile place on earth. But I learned a lot, learned about control of electrics. But as soon as I got my ticket, I was out of there due to the safety side of it. And my brother had a mate who was an electrician. He had a partner, and they never had an apprentice. So I was their first apprentice. And no, I wasn't an apprentice. I was their first tradesman, because I just stopped my ticket. And they were working in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So I started working, doing a lot of driving, and the company was approached by a real high-end audio-visual company at the time, a company called Bang & Olufsen, and that's when technology was just starting, to move speakers out of one room into multiple rooms. TVs were going on walls, but they weren't, still the Cafe Ray tube thing was still going on the wall, but Bang & Olufsen had a motorized one and all that type of thing. That really intrigued me because it was new technology, and I just loved keeping up with new technology. And the company was approached, and the guy who I was working for approached me and said, "Am I interested in that stuff?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Well, what about we look at starting another business, doing the automated side of electrical, of which we started." And I headed it, and I was doing that for about 10 years, and I was effing good at what I did electrically, had no idea of the back end.
Yep.
Absolutely flat out. I ended up with 16 trucks, 20 guys, doing medical, high-end medical work, all that type of thing. And then looked at the books one day and everything was just out of order.
Mm.
And my brother-in-law, who's a very smart chartered accountant, stepped in and had a look at it. And he said, I don't understand this. What's going on? I want you to trade under these conditions, of which I did. And long story short, business partner was doing all the back end completely to his advantage and to my detriment.
Oh, dear.
And I just said to myself, that's it. I'm pulling the pin. And because of lack of trust, I suppose, I was very honourable because, he'd given me a job, given me the opportunities and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets to a point in time with life and money and mortgage that
Yes.
it just has to change. So that was when I started back then Miles Astley Electrical Services, because I could trust family.
Yes.
And as of next year, 20 years down the track, we're still here.
Miles, was it hard for you to start that second part of business? Coming in, as you say, you can trust family. So that would have been relieving for you. And I can imagine being burnt as badly as you were the first time around, it would still be quite nerve-wracking.
Very much so, because I didn't have the business knowledge. That was the scary part. I've always had the headspace of, if I can get myself out of anything physically, I suppose we'll talk about that down a little bit further on.
Mm-hmm.
But physically, I knew I could get myself out of trouble. I was smart enough to pull the client base that I had out of the computer before my ex-business partner decided to steal that. And then it also gave me a good way of clearing the crap, clearing the C and D grade clients.
Let's get rid of them.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I started Miles Astley Electrical Services, I had to get legal advice of how I approach people, leave an email trail and all that. And the response that I got was very interesting. It was, "Oh, we thought you were the other company." I'm not going to mention.
Oh, wow.
They actually thought I had bought that name, which was quite a relief to me. Yeah.
It means that your reputation would have stayed strong, no doubt, if it was only the back end that was getting a bit messy.
Very much so. So the work was always there.
That's great.
And it was great because if ever you've been through hard times with an ex-business partner that's tried to make you bankrupt, you've got to continually feed a lawyer. They're not cheap.
They're very hungry, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you just have to learn. And at 61, I'm still learning. I'm still enjoying it. I suppose I'm passionate about the business because it's always been there for me through thick and thin.
It's really interesting, Miles. I just watched this whole series of videos that a particular trade-based service, I actually think they're just a data collection service, have put together about trades, and they're asking what your trade is and how much money you earn, which is it's a big trend over on social media. Their third question is it your passion? And I found that a really interesting question. I actually found the answers even more interesting, because for some, typically the younger tradies, they were very passionate about what they did. They hadn't been burnt, if you like. And here you are at 61 telling me that it's still something that you're passionate about. So is it the electrical or the business that you're passionate about, or a combo of both?
It used to be electrical when I was on the tools. The joy of fixing something primarily, and I suppose the high end side of electrical back then was, you could do a day's worth of work, you could flick a switch and everything comes to life. And to me, that's really gratifying. I like the service side of electrical when I was on the tools, because if I fixed it, you just flick the switch and it works. And to me, that's gratifying.
Yeah, most definitely. It's a lovely way to help too. I think typically that's why so many tradies go into the traders. They appreciate the ability to be able to help somebody out of a jam, which is essentially what you get to do with any trade, realistically. It's a lovely part of what you do. Miles, you would have had an awful lot of clients in your time in business. And I know we've had some pretty interesting conversations about some of the clients you've had. And you've certainly settled in an area where you're working with some beautiful clients at the moment. But do you want to tell us, maybe share some of your experiences with clients? There's certainly been some good and bad, but you attract a particular client for the most part, I would say. And I reckon it's been like that for you the whole time that you were Miles Astley Electrical and now Astley Electrical. How do you think you work to attract that particular kind of client?
I think we're very professional from the outside,
Mhm.
and we act professional from the inside. What I mean by that is we are tidy.
Mm.
We come across professional and there's no problems. There's only solutions.
Mhm.
The trucks, our vehicles are sign written the same as my shirt. There's not much else on it other than the website and the phone number. We don't need to advertise for all the brandings and all that sort of thing. And there's a way to treat people, I find.
Mhm.
We all eat and breathe the same thing. So my mentality is we all should be treated the same way. And most of our clients become friends. I hate to say it, I've been to clients' funerals.
Yeah, that's really sad.
And
a lovely sentiment.
Even down to, a very, very high-end ex-CEO in Sydney's wife said, Miles, I want you to come because you've been an integral part of our household and the way it runs. And that's beautiful. And I pass that on down to all our staff. And part of what we do, was brought up with an apprentice and we call it the Astley way. And it's not just how we work electrically, it's how we perform socially with the client.
It's almost become a guiding light within the Tradie program. We talk a lot about the Astley way as the example of how you can set a tone for your team, Miles. And I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people in the time that you've been a business owner. What would you say is, thinking about all of the successful people that you've worked with and maybe even the unsuccessful ones, what do you think the difference has been from a business point of view? I mean, you're working with them to train them and develop them in your systems and your structure. Do you think it's the Astley way and the introduction to that has created the best results for you?
I think it is. I seriously think it is. If we employed people that just wanted to do what they wanted to do, then I treat, and I've said it before, I treat our team like the All Blacks rugby union team. And I do that for two reasons. I love rugby union. My boys play rugby union. And I've looked into the way they run their systems and how they treat everybody. And it's phenomenal the way the All Blacks do it. And they do it better than anybody else. And I want to have a business that's an elite, that's everybody wants to work for, and the guys that work within it have to keep themselves up to date with everything to keep somebody out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I see it's a really family-focused business, Miles. I don't need to tell you that. You already know it's for the benefit of our listeners. And what I see is immediately someone who doesn't fit understands that doesn't fit. It almost does the heavy lifting for you because of the way you framed the Astley way. Can you give a bit of a description to those who are listening that have never really, fallen into that concept of what the Astley way is and what it actually means for your team and your customers?
Where it came from, I'll bring that up first. We had an apprentice that turned into a tradesman. And the biggest decision he had to make in his life was whether to stick with us or follow his heart. And we always encourage our apprentices when they finish up to do a trip, or if they want to leave, go and find greener pastures if they think they want to. And he ended up doing a trip, fell in love. Girl lived in the other side of Australia. Anyhow, he sat down and he had a chat to us. And this young bloke, he wrote us each a letter. So my wife, the boys, a letter. put in a gift card for a food voucher, and sat down, and we all talked. And he said, and we said, "What is it that you love working for us?" And he said, "You do it the Astley way." And this is where it came from. And I said, "What the hell do you mean by that?" And he said, "You guys are professional. You don't cut corners. You treat people with respect, everybody with respect. If people don't respect us as staff, you will tell those people that, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't think we're the correct fit." And he said, "I just love working in that team environment."
Mm.
So that's probably the Ashley way. He made it basically, and we brought it up at the next toolbox meeting, and everybody agreed. I actually asked, "What do you guys see the Ashley way meaning?" And they all brought up their own little thing about professionalism and all that sort of thing.
It must have made you very proud, Miles.
Oh, it was. It was almost a tear moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like the reflection of all the hard work that you've put in previous to that. Somebody's articulating it back to you. That is a moment of immense pride, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's funny because you're that hard working in the business that you don't see that side of it. But looking back, my staff are looking after my clients that I've had for 30 odd years, and I get the accolades from them. You've done a good job on this, young man.
That's amazing. I love the concept of the Astley way so much so, as I said, it's become a bit of a guiding light, something we refer to quite frequently throughout the program. We have many versions of it now, other business owners doing the same. And I believe it's your morals and ethics showing up in business, and that's how you create a team. Because your team is most definitely a reflection of who you are as a business owner. And I think that this is the concise way to pull it all together, the Astley way. It's fantastic. Miles, business is never smooth sailing. It has its bumps and downs. Do you want to talk us through some of your journey?
Yeah. When we started, it was seat of your pants, day by day, week by week, super payment by super payment. It was hard work, and in the last 10 years, I've gone through a personal, hard work with a divorce and that type of thing, and that is hard work. But as I said earlier, I always thought that I could physically get myself out of it. The thing that I lacked was the business knowledge, and I was spending so much time thinking I was doing the right thing, and that was all the way down to pen and paper. I was doing everything pen and paper. The amount of hours that I spent after hours doing quotes, doing invoices, doing timesheets, doing scheduling, all by pen and paper. And
amazing. That
was horrific. And then over a period of time, I did another business course where they reflected on the time spent doing that and suggested I get some sort of operating system, of which we did. And believe it or not, we actually outgrew that one.
Yeah.
And just starting with you guys, we started on a new journey with another operating system that's actually going to see us way into the future.
Yeah, that's been a hell of a journey for you guys.
And it still is. And I'm using some of your time in your business to work on my business, to build those systems within the system that will help staff and my sons make everything, primarily quoting, easier, with basically pulling what's in here, putting it into the computer.
Can we talk about that transition, Miles? So you've come from working on the tools and running the business and doing everything with pen to paper. You've had some excellent advice and gotten a great system in place that you've outgrown, and now we're working through into a new system. But the biggest transition here, I think, is the handing over of the knowledge that comes with a business owner. Because I think, my business is no different to this at times as well. Most of it's in our heads. We create a system, we follow it religiously, we're doing the same thing, but we don't know that it's a system, and we don't know how to transfer that knowledge from us to the next person. And in your case, I believe you're doing a really good job of it. And you're doing this in a structure because not only is it your team that needs to know, but you have two amazing sons that are working in your business. And we have a plan in place so that at a particular time when they're ready and you're ready, there may be a transfer of the business. So I'd love to understand how you went. Firstly, there's a decision to come off the tools. And then what you're doing with your knowledge now that you're off the tools is something that I think would be a really valuable share.
Believe me, getting off the tools, as every tradie would say, is probably the hardest decision they ever made. Mine was probably was a physical decision. Worn out, played rugby for too long, and had shoulder problems that couldn't sleep. So 2 shoulder reconstructions later, realistically, as the surgeon said, when he asked me what I did for a trade or what I did for work, and I told him what I was, he said, "You're going to have to stop that." And my answer was, "Mate, I've got to earn a living." He said, "Well, find somebody else to do it." That was his answer primarily. And that was a real eye-opener for me. But what it's done is enabled me to sit back and look at what I can now achieve with the knowledge that I've had over the last, 82, so that's 43 years of being in the trade. What knowledge can I pass on? And I love doing that. I love somebody actually said, "Why don't you be a tech teacher?" That'd bore me to tears. What I like doing now is the chase of the big jobs, the chase of the profit margin being bigger.
Yeah.
But all that sort of thing is now what I do. Now at 61, that's what I should be doing within the business. And you guys have taught me as a community, and it's probably a good thing for people to listen, is to listen. Is to listen into what other trades say. And coming to you guys was a moment of we wanted a trades-based business coaching. And I think you even asked at the time, Nick, what the hell do you guys want business coaching, established business, all that type of thing. We wanted transition and a smooth way of doing it, and getting ideas from other trades just through general conversation, or might be a podcast or something like that. You pick up these little things that you go, you know what? If I introduce that into my business, that little 1% could mean a big change down the track.
Totally. It's an interesting story, and you're quite right. A lot of the businesses that we work with are a version of established, and I've not worked with businesses like yours specifically in the trades before, in other areas most definitely. And it's not typical that people are coming for some of that clarity in the education, the community sharing points like you guys have. I really see you both. I say both because your gorgeous wife is a big part of the program as well, as are your boys. As leaders in the community for the constant thirst for knowledge. You show up to every session that we do. You're always participating. You're very encouraging with the rest of the community. And you religiously take away a key item every single time to make an improvement to your business. And you're seeing the benefit. This is the thing. Not only is your business seeing the benefit, but you personally get to see the benefit. I think that can be very inspirational for those that are listening. Even if you take one thing out of today's podcast and you implement it, you can make a change. It's a very exciting opportunity each of us have. Miles, I don't think I've ever asked the tradie this before. I speak to a lot of tradie wives and we talk about making decisions to come and work in the trade business with our partners. I'd love to talk about your perspective when the time came and Jackie made a decision, or you made a decision together for Jackie to come work in the business. Can you tell us a bit about the point at which you knew you needed help, whether Jackie was the right fit for you, how that decision was made?
So my ex-wife used to do the books, and they were being done at an hour, and emails were being sent in an hour that wasn't very convenient for executive heads to be receiving invoices and things. And anyhow, she moved on, and I just had fill-in people. And even Aaron, my eldest boy, for a period of time would come in one day a week to do the invoices. And it just wasn't viable. It just was not viable. And I was seeing Jackie, and her background was legal, and she was pretty much running a pest control company, which is very similar when it comes to programming staff to jobs and phone ringing and all that sort of thing. And I asked her if she would be interested in doing it, and she probably didn't realize no, she did not realize how much time it was going to take. She thought it might have been 2 or 3 days a week, but it ended up being 5 days a week. And there was a lot of stuff that had to be cleared out, a lot of old stuff that had to be cleared out. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to badmouth anybody here. That's just the way it is. And she's just, we're married now, and the passion that she has is my passion. We often talk about it's our business, and that includes my boys. It's not my business. We actually took Miles out of it, so we rebranded Astley.
Yep.
That was really an eye opener because people thought I was retiring. But we rebranded Astley Electrical because it was Miles Astley Electrical Services. So there was too much of Miles.
Yep.
And we weren't doing as much service work. It was just all around electrical. So the decision was made at Astley Electrical. And yeah, Jackie is an integral part of it. But in saying that, part of what you guys are helping us with is the transition. We've made the decision. We're not going to retire until we physically and mentally and can't.
Yep.
Because of the passion we've got in the business, but we want to step back a bit, and we're putting systems in place to do that, and that is happening as we speak. You know, my eldest boy is in a different role; he's hardly on the tools anymore, and he's enjoying it, and he can see the potential of the business, and that's something that I said to Jackie, even when I first met her. I got this little electrical contracting business. I'm working my ass off. The potential it's got is phenomenal, but I can't do it on my own.
No, totally not. You're a formidable team, that's for sure. Miles, can you talk to us about the plans? You guys are a family. You work together as a family in the business, but it's much broader than that. You have quite a large team that support you, and there is a very firm and evolving plan in place for your transition within the business. Do you want to talk us through that and what steps you're taking now to create that eventual outcome for you all?
We're utilising videos and documentation and storing that in apps that staff are going to be able to access, which to me is just phenomenal. You know, give me a folder and an index and away I go. Basically, that's what we are creating digitally.
Yep.
And even down to, I want to do the basics of the Astley way. This is how we install a PowerPoint with the box underneath it, with the dustpan and broom. Simple stuff, just simple stuff. And Jackie's doing exactly that with administration. A lot of our, invoicing sounds easy. You send a bill out and you get paid. Well, when you've got big jobs and big builders, and every builder has a different way of wanting their invoices done, then you really need to have a system for each invoice that can be picked up by anybody. Because if I fall over, done that earlier this year, or Jackie does, we need somebody to be able to step into that role. So they're the things that we're building now, so as we can sit back and watch what happens in the background. We trust the boys, we're trusting the boys with our future and our future retirement financially, because the business has built itself up to look after us, and they'll end up with the business, they'll own it, and their payback will be to look after Jackie and I financially. And it'll all be legally drawn up.
Of course, of course. I love that everybody's so willing in their role. It can be, when we have family businesses, it can be very blurry. and it can be very hard to define the roles in a way that everybody is comfortable and that we are working towards the things that make us happy and passionate. And that's something that you guys have fallen into quite swiftly as we kind of work through that in the beginning. Miles, what do you think has been the biggest contributor to the passion that you still have for what you do, and perhaps what Jackie's passion as well? Where do you think that has come from?
I think a lot of people that have been through a lot, either emotionally or business or financially, once they pick up something that they enjoy and you're getting a money return from, it gives you a purpose in life. And you wake up every morning, and if you wake up and you're not enjoying where you're going, you should rethink it. That's my way of thinking. I'm up pretty much every morning at 5 o'clock. Even if I'm going into town for a meeting, I'm always up at 5 in the office, check the emails, and then I'm out the door at 5:30. If I didn't have a passion to do it, I wouldn't be doing it. I'd still be in bed. And then the net return on that is I get, I pay myself. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
It's great that you've found a position in the company as you've grown so that you can maintain that passion. I think often we get stuck doing things we don't necessarily want to do. And there's always a hard part of business, of course, that we don't want to do and we have to do. But in your case, you've been able to grow within the business to the role that serves you best right now, but it actually serves the company best as well. I think it's a great example for others that are listening in. Miles, a different question for you. Given your longevity in the trade, what's the one or several lessons that you wish you had have learned earlier in your business journey?
You can think you're the best tradesman in Australia, working 80 hours a week, but are you actually making money?
It's a great
and
question.
if you're chasing money and you're working 80 hours a week, you're doing something wrong. The light bulb moment for me was probably stepping out of the business, because one thing that happened when I did step out of the business, turnover increased, profit increased, and Miles was off the tools. So go figure.
Miles, do you contribute to that? You having the ability and the time then to be reflecting over where the business was at? Is that what made that difference for you?
I think so. I wanted more out of it. I think that's probably the bottom line for the time spent. But you can't reflect on the past, I suppose. You can't think, if I'd done that differently, where would I be now? This is where I am now. And everybody gets to that stage. I think if I knew better earlier, I could be in a different position. But, and I suppose that the majority of people within your community are a heck of a lot are younger than me, and probably should think about that sooner rather than later. So they don't, yes, I am enjoying myself. I could be in a lot better position than I am now, but that's just the way it is. So, if you can be a lot more business minded as a tradie, and I think this is where tradies fail. If you can be a lot more business minded, I think you would find you could develop yourself, not work as hard physically, have the passion for it, and the net result will be a better lifestyle.
I couldn't agree more. All right, I've got one last question for you, Miles. It's a question that I think most tradies would love to be asked, and it's about apprentices. And I wonder, what's the one thing that you wish every apprentice knew?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Every apprentice knew. The apprentices of today, what they knew. They should know a lot, but
that's the truth.
I'll use one word, Nick. Respect. That's all I ask is respect. Respect for yourself. Respect for your fellow worker. Respect for the company you work for, because they're giving you an amazing opportunity. You're actually being paid to be taught.
Yeah.
Respect the tools you use. Respect the company tools. Yeah, respect, I think.
It's a great.
And that's probably the hardest. I hate to say it, but that's the hardest thing I find these days with. I'm not having a go at anybody. I'm not having a go at society. It's just that's just the way it is. And we're very open with our apprentices that, we will look after you, but you have to look after us.
It's a two-way street. I really appreciate that. That's your word. Respect. It only takes a little respect for it to go a long way, Miles. And it's certainly something that you do particularly well. And I think most of us learn by demonstration of others. So if there is one thing that your apprentices are going to pick up on, I'm sure it's respect. It's very much factored into the Astley way. It's a very big part of who you are, who your family is, and how that shows up in your workplace. Miles, it's been a joy to talk to you in this different format today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners if they want to go and have a bit of a poke around and figure out who you are and what you're up to, where would they find you?
You've only got to type Miles Astley in Google and it goes straight to the business.
That's
look, and that's another thing I learnt, Nick, was we all have to market. I always thought marketing was if you do a good job, the next person will tell you about it. COVID taught me a lot in reference to marketing. A lot of marketing that I did was me physically going to the site, and it was, it could be a corporate office, and they go, "Oh, Miles, I've been meaning to talk to you." The only reason they said that, they physically saw me.
That's right.
So through COVID, no one saw me. So we upped the ante on the marketing. So they fucking saw me.
Got it.
And continually do it. We do it in a different way a little bit with newsletters, etc. We're not a business that offers discounts and stuff like that. Yep. You pay what you get. You pay for what you get. And we offer a wealth of information, and that's for free. And why wouldn't you use somebody that's offering you information of, what would benefit you electrically?
Very important. Well, thank you, Miles. It's always a joy talking to you. I really value your time and for sharing so abundantly today. It's been
no problem, Nick. It was great. I enjoy this as well. You know that.
I do. Thank you. We'll chat soon. Thanks for listening.
No problem.
You've been listening to Tradies in Business podcast with Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.